Every vendetta has a ledger. The Changrettas and the Shelbys kept theirs for 20 years. Insults, territories, a horse, a marriage, and finally blood, until the ledger swallowed both families whole. But there's one entry the ledger never recorded. A boy, 4 years old in the winter of 1920, standing in the doorway of a burned-out house on the Italian side of Birmingham, with nowhere left to go, the last small branch of the Changretta tree left in England, after the early feud took his parents, and the boats took everyone else. And the person who found him was not a priest, and not a policeman. It was Polly Gray. The woman who buried her own husband, who had her own 2 children stolen by the parish Polly, who knows exactly what the world does with children nobody claims. And Polly Gray did the one thing a Shelby is never supposed to do with anything Changretta. She took him home. Imagine it, a Changretta boy raised in the Shelby house, fed at the Shelby table, schooled with Shelby money, taught to box by Arthur and to read by Ada with Changretta blood in his veins, and a Changretta name folded away in a drawer, waiting. And now understand what this story is really about, because it is not about whether the Shelbys can love an enemy's child. They can. That is the easy part. And it is done within a year. The hard part arrives in 1925, on a boat from New York, wearing a black coat and carrying a toothpick. Luca Changretta comes to Birmingham to erase the Shelby family from the earth, and finds, living in the heart of the family he has sworn to destroy, the last of his own blood. A nephew, raised by the enemy, loving the enemy. And every gun in this war suddenly has to ask a question no vendetta has ever answered. What is a boy when the ledger says he belongs to one family, and every day of his life says he belongs to the other? Stay with me. Because this story will end with that boy standing between 2 loaded ideas of family, and the choice he makes will ask you about the family you were born into, the one you built, and what you owe each of them when they finally come to collect. Begin with Polly, because everything in this story grows from her decision, and her decision grows from her wounds. Remember who Polly Gray is, beneath the fur and the sharp tongue. A mother whose son and daughter were taken by the parish, and the police stolen, not lost, and who spent years not knowing if her Michael was alive. Warm, beaten, loved. When she finally gets him back, he comes back a stranger from a clean Protestant kitchen. That is the hole in the center of Polly Gray. She knows precisely what happens to a child processed by institutions. They take the name first, then the memory, then the softness. She has lived on the receiving end of that machine. So when the early feud burns out the Changretta house in the winter of 1920, a reprisal that went further than ordered, the kind of thing Arthur does first and drinks about after, and word comes that there is a boy, 4 years old, sitting on the curb while the neighbors argue about whose problem he is, Polly does not hold a family meeting. She puts on her coat.
Don't look at me like that, Thomas. The parish would have him by Friday, and by Christmas he'd be a number in a ledger in a grey little room. And I have seen that room. No child goes into that room off the back of something this family did. Not while I breathe. He eats at mine. That's the end of the discussion. There wasn't one.
And here is what you must understand about the family's reaction, because it sets the whole board. Arthur, who caused the orphaning. Though no one says, it becomes the boy's fiercest defender within a month, because guilt in Arthur Shelby always converts to devotion. Ada teaches him letters and tells him he's cleverer than all her brothers, which is true. And Tommy watches. Tommy is the only one who says out loud what everyone is careful not to think, that a Changretta boy in a Shelby kitchen is not a rescue. It is a wager, a very long bet against blood itself.
I'm not saying turn him out, Paul. I'm saying know what you've picked up. Italians count. They count debts, they count graves, they count sons. Somewhere across the water, somebody's counting him. And one day the counting man comes, and we find out whether 10 years of your table beats 400 years of theirs.
Hold Tommy's sentence. We find out whether her table beats their blood. That is the entire story, laid like a fuse in Chapter 1. The rest of this video is the fuse burning down. They call him Anthony. His baptism name, Antonio, folded into English the way Birmingham folds everything into itself. Anthony Gray to the school, Anthony to the yard, Tony to Arthur when they box in the back court on Sunday mornings. And for 10 years, watch the wager quietly pay out. Because the boy flourishes, and he flourishes in a specifically Shelby way, which is what makes this middle act of the story so warm and so ominous at once. He has the Changretta patience. He watches before he speaks, counts before he moves, grafted onto a Shelby education, in exactly how the world works below the waterline. He learns odds from the betting shop chalkboards before he learns fractions from the school. He learns from Polly how to read a face, from Ada how to read a room, from Arthur how to end a fight, and from Tommy at a careful distance, because Tommy keeps him at a careful distance, how power actually moves. Quietly, through paper, ahead of everyone else's clock. But do not let the warmth fool you, because the house never fully forgets, and neither does the street. Watch the small moments this chapter is really made of. The way conversations about the Italian business stop when Anthony enters the kitchen, a silence with edges, and children feel edges long before they understand them. The Italian grandmothers on the far side of Digbeth who cross themselves, quick and small, when Polly walks him past, because they know exactly whose bones he has, and what house he sleeps in, and what both of those facts together will one day cost. And the drawer. Polly keeps a drawer, locked, and in it, a photograph of his mother, his father's watch, and a slip of paper with his true name. She has never hidden its existence from him. That is Polly's iron rule, the one she learned from losing Michael to comfortable lies.
You'll ask me one day, and the day you ask, you'll be told everything, the name, the house, all of it. And God help us both. I'll not build you on a lie, Anthony. I was handed back a son, built on one, and I've watched what the crack in him does. You'll always know there's a drawer. You choose the day we open it.
Mark the drawer. Like the envelope in another story this channel has told, everything in this tale bends toward the day it opens. And the day it opens is the day a boat from New York docks in Liverpool. But there is one member of this family for whom the boy is not a rescue, not a wager, not a nephew, but a mirror. And mirrors, in the Shelby house, draw blood. Michael Gray. Think about what Michael and Anthony are to each other, because the symmetry is almost cruel. Michael. Polly's true son, taken from her by the state, raised by strangers in a clean Protestant kitchen, returned at 18, a polite stranger, with another family's manners. Anthony, another family's true son, orphaned by the Shelbys, raised by Polly in the thick of everything. Michael missed the kitchen, the yard, the Sunday boxing, the shouting, the warmth. Polly's stolen son and Polly's chosen son. One got her blood and none of her days. The other got every day and none of her blood. And Michael does the arithmetic the day he walks back into that kitchen and finds a 12-year-old sitting in what should have been his chair, finishing Polly's sentences, knowing where the good cups are kept. He is too controlled to say it. Michael is always too controlled to say it, but watch it leak out sideways for years. The way he calls Anthony the lodger when Polly is out of the room, the way he competes, elegantly, in the only currency he owns, usefulness. Michael becomes the company's numbers man, partly because the numbers are the one room in the family where the lodger cannot follow.
I'm not saying anything against the boy, Mum. I'm saying you kept a drawer for him. A name, a photograph, a whole story, locked in waiting, because he had a right to know what he comes from. Fine. Where was my drawer? Where was the woman keeping my name safe for the day, I asked. You gave the enemy's son what nobody gave yours. And you wonder why I look at him the way I do.
And Polly, who can gut a bishop with one sentence, has no answer for this one. Because it is true, and because the truest wounds in this show are always the ones love inflicts by triage. She could not keep a drawer for Michael. The state took him too fast and too completely. So she kept one for Anthony instead, motherhood by proxy, penance by proxy, all of it aimed at the child she could still reach. Michael understands this perfectly. Understanding it perfectly is what makes it unbearable. Mark this fracture, because Luca Changretta, who studies families the way surgeons study bodies, looking for the weak tissue, will find it. In the show, Michael is the one the Changrettas try to turn in New York, with an offer and a threat. In this world, the offer writes itself. Help me take back my nephew cousin, and you get your mother back, all to yourself. The vendetta's sharpest blade was never going to be aimed at the boy. It was always going to be aimed at the jealousy standing next to him. 1,000, 925. Luca Changretta comes to Birmingham with a suitcase full of hats and a list of names, exactly as you remember the vendetta for his father Vicente and his brother Angel, sworn on Sicilian soil, sealed in New York, blackhand men in the lanes, a hit at Michael's hospital bed. The garrison's windows shattered. The rules explained with terrible courtesy. No women, no children, everyone else pays. But this Luca steps off the boat into a Birmingham that holds something the vendetta's ledger never priced: family. His family. A nephew, his cousin's boy, the last Changretta born on English soil, alive, healthy, 17 years old. And where? The question answers itself like a curse. In the house of Polly Gray, at the table of Thomas Shelby, wearing their name like a coat over his blood. Watch Luca receive this intelligence, because the scene tells you everything about what kind of story this is now. His men expect rage. Instead, Luca goes very quiet and smiles the way he smiles at funerals, and says the vendetta has just become something better than revenge. It has become a time's reclamation.
He sent a letter to the boy, to Anthony, handed to him outside the school gates by a man in a black coat, polite as a bank. Aunt Pole. He knows. About the drawer, about the name, he knows more than the boy does. And he's not threatening him. That's what should frighten us. He's times inviting, times him.
Because that is Luca's masterstroke, and you must sit with how precise it is. He does not threaten Anthony. Threats would weld the boy to the Shelbys forever. Luca understands adopted loyalty better than the Shelbys do, because Sicily has 400 years of case law on it. Instead, the letter says, "Nephew, they burned your father's house. The man who taught you to box lit the match. The woman who raised you kept your name in a locked drawer like a confiscated weapon. You have eaten 20 years at the table of the people who orphaned you and called it kindness. I am not asking you to do anything. I am only asking you to open the drawer and then decide, as a Changretta decides, with open eyes. I will be in Birmingham until Easter. Your blood, L.C. Every sentence true." That is the horror of it. Luca Changretta does not need to tell the boy a single lie. The truth, aimed correctly, is the best weapon the vendetta has ever loaded. And now, the fuse Tommy named in 1920 has an open flame at its end. The counting man has come, and he is counting Anthony. And what does Thomas Shelby do with a Changretta boy in the family once the black coats arrive? Exactly what you fear he does. He sees an asset. And the fight over that Tommy against Polly, in the back room of the garrison with the doors shut, is the best scene of this middle act. So watch it whole. Because Tommy's logic is flawless, as Tommy's logic always is when it is about to cost someone their soul. The vendetta has the Shelbys outgunned and outplanned. Luca has men, money, and patience, and the family is bleeding. And here, sleeping under Polly's roof, is the one piece on the board Luca cannot fire on and cannot ignore. Blood of his blood, love of their raising. Used correctly, a public appearance here, a photograph there, a carefully leaked story about the Changretta boy who chose the Shelbys Anthony is worth more than 10 guns. He is propaganda. He is a human shield made of Luca's own honor. Tommy would never say it that way. Tommy says it this way.
I'm not asking him to lie, Paul. I'm asking him to be seen. Stand in the shop, walk to the church, be photographed, being what he is ours. Every hour he's visible. Luca's rules bind Luca's hands. It's protection, for him and for us. No razors, no guns, just the truth. Place where it does the most work.
Placed. Aye, there it is. 17 years I've raised that boy to be nobody's instrument, not theirs, not ours, and you'd turn him into a sandbag the day the shooting starts. Hear me, Thomas, and hear me once. He is not company property. He is not leverage that eats at my table. You put that boy on your board and I will burn the board, and you with it, and light my cigarette off the pair of you.
And Tommy backs down. Tommy, who does not back down for kings or coppers, backs down but sit with why, because it is not fear of Polly and it is not tenderness. It is arithmetic of a deeper kind, the kind Tommy does when nobody is watching. He looks at Anthony and sees what using him would prove, that the boy's 20 years in this family were, in the final accounting, an investment like everything else Tommy owns. And some ledger inside Thomas Shelby, the one that still keeps accounts from before France. The one Polly swears is down there under the ice, refuses the entry. Just this once, the family's greatest strategist declines the winning move. Nobody thanks him. Nobody even knows, except Polly. It is the most invisible good deed in this whole story. And it will matter at the graveside, because when the moment comes to trust the boy's own judgment, Tommy will be the one man who has already practiced keeping his hands off him. One more piece before the drawer opens, the smallest piece, and the one that decides more than any gun in this story. Digbeth. The Italian side. The grandmothers. Because a vendetta is never really run by the men in the black coats. It is run by the memory of a community, by who gets served first at the bakery, who gets crossed against at the church door, whose name is said with which face. And for 17 years, the Italian quarter of Birmingham has been conducting a quiet referendum on the boy with the two names. Anthony feels it every time Polly sends him across town on an errand that could have gone to anyone, and Polly always sends him, deliberately, because she is running a long campaign of her own. Let them see him. Let them see he is fed, mannered, whole. Let them see what the Shelby woman made of the Changretta boy. Some doors stay shut to him, always the ones who lost men to Shelby razors, and no boy's good manners buys those back. Nor should it, but watch what happens at the bakery of old Signora Ricci, who knew his grandmother in Palermo. Year by year, the transaction grows a sentence longer. Bread. Then, bread and his mother's name, said once, like a test. Then bread and a story small, at first. Your mother saying, "Boy, did anyone ever tell you that?" Your father carved. And by the time Anthony is 16, he is sitting in the back of the bakery on Saturday mornings, learning his own dead family from a woman who crosses herself when Polly passes, and Polly knows he is there, and never once forbids it.
Of course I know where he goes on Saturdays. I send the bread money with him, don't I? Don't look so shocked, Ada. The drawer holds a name and a photograph. That woman holds the rest, the songs, the recipes, the sound of it. I can give him a family. I can't give him times that times family. So I let her. It costs me, if you want the truth. Every Saturday it costs me, and I'd sooner pay than raise a man with half a self.
Hold this, because it is the quiet masterstroke of Polly's whole 20-year wager, and the reason the ending becomes possible at all. When Luca arrives, with his letter full of true and poisonous sentences, times they kept your name in a locked drawer like a confiscated weapon, times the letter is wrong, and Anthony knows it is wrong, because he has spent 5 years of Saturdays being handed his own history by his own people with his adoptive mother's blessing. Luca's best weapon was the accusation of erasure. Polly disarmed it years in advance, one loaf of bread at a time. That is what fighting for a child's soul actually looks like. Not the graveside speeches, the Saturdays. Stop the story here, one breath before the drawer opens, because the question underneath it has been circling you this whole time, and it lands now. Anthony is about to learn that both things are true at once. The family that raised him is the family that orphaned him. The kindness was real, and so was the match. 20 years of Sunday boxing and mended coats, and Polly's fierce love real. And the burned house, the curb in the winter of 1920 also real. Same people, same hands. And that quieter, smaller, without guns, is a shape many of you know. The parent who was both the shelter and the storm. The family that built you and broke things in you with the same hands in the same years. The people you owe everything to, who are also the people some part of you has never stopped keeping a ledger against. The drawer in your own house, the thing everyone knows is there, and no one opens, because the day it opens, love and grievance will finally have to sit at the same table and settle up. So here is the question. Put it in the comments, honestly, because I read every one. When the two truths about your family finally sat side by side, the love and the damage, both real, both theirs, which one did you decide to build on? And did deciding feel like forgiveness, or like surrender, or like the first honest day of your life? Keep your answer close. Anthony is about to need it. Anthony comes home from the school gates with the letter in his pocket, And he does the thing Polly always knew he would do, on the day she always knew would come. He puts the letter on the kitchen table, and he asks for the drawer. And Polly Gray give her this, because it is the bravest thing anyone does in this entire story. Does not stall, does not soften, does not curate. She unlocks the drawer, lays out the photograph, the watch, the slip of paper with his name, and then she tells him everything. The feud, the reprisal. Whose order, whose hands, which night. She tells it plain, no varnish on the family, no varnish on herself.
And now you know what he knows. And one thing more that he'll never tell you. That night made you an orphan, and it was ours. God forgive us. It was this family's doing. But hear the whole of it, Anthony. I didn't take you in to balance that book. I took you in because I stood where you sat, on the wrong end of powerful men's arithmetic, and nobody came for mine. Everything since, every meal, every mended coat, every year, none of it was penance. It was want. You were wanted, boy. That's the one entry his ledger has no column for.
Now watch the boy, because the story turns on what he does next, and it is not what either family expects. He does not rage, he does not run to Luca, he does not fall into Polly's arms either. He does something far more frightening to everyone around him. He goes quiet, and he starts counting patient. Changretta, patient, with a Shelby education in how to count. For 3 days he walks the city. He stands across from the burned plot on the Italian side, rebuilt now, a cooper's yard. He sits in the back pew at St. Michael's where the grandmothers cross themselves. He watches Arthur the match, the guilt. The 20 years of Sunday devotion teach the neighbor kids to box, gentler than any man that violent has a right to be. Both truths, side by side. The love and the damage. Same people, same hands. And on the 4th day he writes 2 letters. The first letter goes to Luca, and it names a church, because a Changretta will not shoot in a church, and a Shelby education says always pick the room before the other man does. Watch this meeting, because it is the scene the whole alternate history has been building. The last 2 Changrettas in England, in a side chapel smelling of wax, one in a black coat with a vendetta 20 years fat, one 17 years old, with a Birmingham accent and his father's watch on his wrist. Luca studies the boy the way he studies everything, for leverage, for softness, for the seam where a man splits. And the boy puts his terms on the pew between them like a bet slip. He will not fire on the Shelbys, not now, not ever. But he will not stand with them against his blood either. And one thing more, he claims the vendetta's oldest rule back against its keeper. No women, no children. And I was a child, uncle, the night your ledger burned my house. I was the child. So the ledger is not clean, and you did not come to Birmingham with clean hands to collect a clean debt. You came to trade one crime for another and call it honor.
He said that. 17, and he stood in a chapel and told Luca Changretta his vendetta was dirty arithmetic. Then hear me, all of you, because this changes the war. The boy's not a hostage anymore, and he's not a Shelby soldier, and God knows he's not theirs. He's made himself the one thing neither side can shoot, the judge. Every move we make now ours, and Luca's gets weighed by the only person in this city with the right to weigh it. So we fight this war like men being watched, because we are.
And that Tommy sees it before anyone is the deepest change this boy works on the story. In the vendetta, you know from the show, both sides race to the bottom. Traitors bought, weddings ambushed, a man strangled at his own son's christening party. In this world, both armies fight under the eyes of a boy who is the living conscience of both bloodlines at once. Luca cannot butcher the family that fed his nephew without losing him forever. The Shelbys cannot poison and cheat their way clear without proving the letter right. For the first time in Peaky Blinders, a war has a witness that both sides need to impress. Violence with an audience of one, and the audience is the point. And then Luca plays the card this story marked for him chapters ago. Not at Anthony. At the fracture standing next to Anthony. Michael. It happens the way it happened in the show, almost to the letter, because some scenes are load-bearing in every timeline. Michael in the hospital after the attack that was meant for him. Wired jaw, guarded door. And past the guard, with a doctor's coat and a doctor's calm, comes a man with a message from Luca Changretta. But in this world the offer is not the show's offer. Stand aside while we kill your cousins, and you live. Luca has studied this family through his nephew's letters home from the school gates, through 5 years of bakery Saturdays, through everything the Italian quarter sees and says. He knows where the tissue is weakest. And so the offer is bespoke. Help me bring my nephew home to his blood. Mr. Gray, one conversation, one door left unlocked, nothing more. And when we sail, the lodger sails with us. The chair at your mother's table comes back to you. Her Saturdays come back to you. You were the stolen son. He was the replacement. We both know the arithmetic. I'm only offering to correct it. Sit with how good this is. It asks Michael for almost nothing. No betrayal of blood, no Shelby grave. It offers him the one thing no money buys. His mother, undivided. And every word of its arithmetic is true, which is Luca's signature, the truth, aimed correctly. Michael lies in that bed for 2 days, with the offer folded under his water glass. And this story will not insult him by pretending the answer was easy. But then watch what he does, because it is the quiet redemption this character never quite got in the show. He calls not for Tommy, for Anthony, alone. And he puts the letter in the boy's hands himself.
Read it. Go on. Now hear me, because I'll say this once and then never again. Everything he says about me is true. I've counted your chair at her table every day for 10 years. And some mornings, God help me, I'd have signed this. But he's got one thing wrong. And it took a wired jaw and 2 days staring at the ceiling to find it. You're not why I lost her Saturdays. The parish is. The state is. Men in black coats who decide what a family is with a ledger and a van. That's who took me. And that's exactly what he is, offering to take you. So no, he doesn't get to do it twice. Not to her. Not in this family.
And Anthony, who has just watched the man with every reason to sell him refuse the perfect price, learns the thing that will steady his hand at the graveside better than any of Polly's fierce speeches. This family's love is not clean, not simple, and shot through with jealousy and old damage. And it holds anyway, held by a man who wanted him gone and chose him regardless. That, more than blood, more than bread, more than any drawer, that is the evidence the judge was waiting for. But this is still Birmingham, and this is still a vendetta. And stories like this one always demand their blood before they allow their peace. So it comes one gun on each side that would not wait for judgment. One of Luca's New York men, younger, hungrier, tired of a vendetta, gone soft over a boy, moves on Arthur without orders. And an hour later, before the smoke has cleared or the truth has walked the length of the city, one of the Shelby guns answers against a Changretta cousin who had nothing to do with it. 2 funerals in 1 week. The old arithmetic, reasserting itself like weather. And at the second graveside, across the open earth, Luca Changretta and Thomas Shelby finally face each other, with the boy standing exactly between them, where he has, if you think about it, been standing since the winter of 1920. And Anthony makes the choice this whole story exists for. Not a family, a rule. He steps to the grave's edge and speaks it to both of them, in front of both crews. In the oldest court, either bloodline recognizes open ground over an open coffin. The ledgers are even, he says. Count them, uncle, count them. Tommy, I have. A house for a house, a man for a man, 20 years of interest paid on both sides, and I am the last entry either of you has left to spend. So here is my price, and I am the only thing left either of you wants. It ends at this hole in the ground, or the next hole is mine, dug by whichever of you moves first, and the other one wins me forever. That's the trade. That was always going to be the trade. Family isn't the ledger. Family is who puts the ledger down. And now, the 2 endings, because this story, like every honest story, carries both, and which one lands depends on the 2 hardest men in it. The dark ending first. Vendettas are older than boys, and Sicily has buried 1,000 Anthonys. In this ending, Luca smiles at the graveside speech, embraces his nephew, praises his nerve, and continues the arithmetic anyway, patient, by other means, because the oath to his father outranks the living boy in front of him. It ends the way the show ended it, with a betrayal bought in New York, a body on a warehouse floor, and the vendetta technically won by somebody. And Anthony keeps his graveside word with terrible precision. He stands at the funeral beside Polly, and then he is gone from Birmingham, from both names, a man with 2 families, and therefore none. Polly keeps the drawer unlocked in an empty room. The wager Tommy named in 1920 comes up exactly even. Her table held the boy for 20 years, and their blood, weaponized by grief, drove him from it. Nobody wins even money on a 20-year bet. That is the dark ending. The ledger closes, and it takes the last good thing on either side with it. But the bright ending, and it is the one this story believes in, so hear it whole. Luca Changretta is a man of rules. It is the only soft thing left in him. And at that graveside, the boy did not appeal to his mercy. 17 years in the Shelby house taught him better than that. He appealed to the rules. The vendetta broke its own law the night it made a child of the blood an orphan. Every Sicilian grandmother from Digbeth to Palermo would nod at that. So Luca does the one thing that lets him go home unbeaten and unbloodied. He declares the ledger settled, not forgiven. Settled. The distinction matters to men like him. Takes off one black glove at the graveside and shakes his nephew's hand. The Changretta claim on Birmingham dies not in a barn with a bullet, but in a handshake neither side had to be ashamed of. And Anthony stays. Not as a Shelby, he never takes the name, but as something Birmingham has never had before. A man both sides trust across the old line. The Cooper's yard on the Italian side rebuilt with Shelby money and a Changretta name over the gate. Polly's wager pays out at last, and the payout was never the boy's loyalty. It was the boy's whole self, intact, unbroken by the two bloods in him, the first child of this feud that the feud did not get to spend. Now put the guns away, and take the last piece of this with you, because this story was never really about a vendetta. It was about the drawer. Every family has one. The locked thing everyone knows is there. The true story of how you came to be, who you are, the account of what the people who loved you also did to you, to others, before you, around you. And every family handles it one of two ways. Some curate. They hide the drawer, feed the child the clean version, and call it protection, and the crack that puts in a person, Polly could tell you, because she got her Michael back with exactly that crack in him, and the show spent 6 seasons watching it spread. And some do what Polly did. Keep the drawer visible, promise the whole truth on the day it's asked for, and then this is the part that takes the courage. Actually tell it, unvarnished, and trust the love to survive the ledger. Anthony survived learning the worst about his family, because nobody ever lied to him about there being a worst. That is the sentence to take out of Birmingham tonight. What breaks people is not the darkness in their family's story. It is discovering the darkness after a lifetime of being told there was none, because then everything, even the love, gets re-audited as part of the lie. The truth, told early and plainly by someone who stays in the room while you take it, the truth is survivable. It is almost the only thing that is. So, your drawer. Whichever side of it you are standing, on the one who gets to ask, or the one who will someday have to answer this story, leaves you with the same charge. Open it on purpose, with the people you love in the room, before some Luca in a black coat opens it for you from the outside. Because someone always comes to Birmingham eventually. The only question is whether the boy at the kitchen table already knows. If these are the roads you like walking, the ones Birmingham never took, followed all the way to their ends, stay close, because we walk another one every week. And tell me below, because I read every answer. The love and the damage. Side by side, which one did you build on?